Greetings everyone, this is Father Simon Willis, missionary in Scotland, and today is Sunday, the 5th day within the octave of Christmas, and we're celebrating the feast of the Holy Family. And today's Gospel is from the Gospel of St. Luke, chapter 2, verses 41 to 52. The parents of Jesus went to Jerusalem every year at the feast of the Passover, and when he was 12 years old, they went up according to custom. And when the feast was ended, as they were returning, the boy Jesus stayed behind in Jerusalem. His parents did not know it, but supposing him to be in the group, they went a day's journey. But then they began to search for him among their relatives and acquaintances. And when they did not find him, they returned to Jerusalem, searching for him. After 3 days they found him in the temple, sitting among the teachers, listening to them and asking them questions. And all who heard him were amazed at his understanding and his answers. And when his parents saw him, they were astonished, and his mother said to him, "Son, why have you treated us so? Behold, your father and I have been searching for you in great distress." And he said to them, "Why were you looking for me? Did you not know that I must be in my Father's house?" And they did not understand the saying that he spoke to them. And he went down with them and came to Nazareth and was submissive to them. And his mother treasured up all these things in her heart. And Jesus increased in wisdom and in stature and in favor with God and man. So today we're celebrating the feast of the Holy Family. And the Church always celebrates this beautiful feast during a beautiful time, the time of Christmas. It always falls on the Sunday within the Christmas octave. And this feast gives us the opportunity to think a little bit about the family, to think about the beauty of the family, the dignity of the family, the value of the family, obviously taking the Holy Family as our principal model, our principal exemplar. And it may surprise us that sacred scripture speaks so little about the family life of Jesus, Mary and Joseph. Obviously the Gospels speak to us of some of the facts surrounding, for example, the birth of our blessed Lord, as we've been reading in our liturgies these days. Also the escape into Egypt of the Holy Family, the return to Nazareth, Jesus being presented in the temple, Jesus being found in the temple at 12 years old. So this is mentioned, but not much more. But if we really think about it, these small snippets of Jesus' hidden life, these 30 years that he lived prior to beginning his public ministry, these small snippets really provide us with everything that we need to know, because the life of the Holy Family was, so to speak, a normal life. It was an ordinary life. St. Joseph, he was a carpenter. Mary, our Blessed Mother, dedicated herself to the upkeep of the humble home of Nazareth. Jesus was a child, he grew up, he too became a carpenter like his foster father Joseph. So it was a very normal life, that of the Holy Family. And if great events had happened, incredible miracles had happened, the evangelists would have remembered them, they would have told us about them. So the really special thing about the Holy Family is not that great and extraordinary events happened, but that the Holy Family, they lived an ordinary life in an extraordinary way. And this is such an important principle, such an important spiritual principle for each one of us. Living the ordinary in an extraordinary way. And this is something we can all try and put into practice. In fact, it's something that should characterize our own spirituality. It's the real secret to a high level of holiness. Saint Therese of Lisieux would say, she says, remember that nothing is small in the eyes of God. That nothing is small. And she says, do all that you do with love. So many times, maybe we can be tempted to think that holiness consists in doing those big things, like some of the saints were called to do, to fast for days, to pray for hours like Padre Pio, to not sleep, to live the material poverty of St. Francis of Assisi. We can think of these great examples, and many times we can get discouraged because we think that what we're doing can seem insignificant in comparison to these great men and women, these great saints. Yet, the ordinary kind of holiness is that which is presented to us today by the Holy Family. This holiness of doing all things, even the smallest things, with great love, and these become great in the eyes of God. Now, it's very interesting that in the Gospel of Mark, the people say of Jesus that he has done everything well. Bene omnia fecit. Jesus did everything well. He did everything with infinite perfection, both the big things, but also the small things, the ordinary things. When we think about it, our own lives are built around the small and the ordinary, the routine, the bread and butter of every day. So therefore, our spiritual growth, our growth in our union and relationship with God, it won't ordinarily come down to the big things, because they appear very rarely. But instead, our spiritual growth will normally come down to the ordinary things, and doing these ordinary things well. Now, this is a good resolution for us, for all of us, as a new year is about to begin, another year to really think and to maximize the little opportunities for holiness that are presented to us every day. There's no shortage of opportunities during our day to become holy. Maybe it means praying the rosary, for example, with greater concentration, or maybe it means being more recollected before I go to Mass, or to offer greater thanksgiving after Mass. Maybe it means trying to be that extra bit charitable to that person who tests my patience. Very little things, but to really maximize these little opportunities to grow in holiness. And finally, to finish, I just want to offer you a couple of concrete means or ways that we can all adopt in order to seek perfection in all the ordinary activities of our life, in imitation of the Holy Family of Nazareth. Now, how can we, all of us, do everything well as they did? There's a great saint from Turin, St. Joseph Cafasso. Now, he was the spiritual guide to St. John Bosco, and he offers 3 very simple counsels that can help us raise our ordinary affairs to an extraordinary level, so as to arrive at a high level of sanctity. And what does he say? What does he counsel, St. Joseph Cafasso? The first counsel he offers is to try and to do everything in the way that Jesus would do it. To do everything in the way that Jesus would do all things. We always remember the phrase, what would Jesus do? What would he do if he was in my situation? That's a very good question to ask ourselves. With every action we do, we should really think, if Jesus were in my place, what would he do? Would he think like this? Would he talk like this? Would he act like this? etc. No? So if we keep these thoughts in our minds, we would do things well. The second counsel, St. Joseph Cafasso says, is to do everything, every action, as if it were the last thing we were to do in our lives. To do everything as though it were the last thing that we were to do on this earth. Now, this is an extremely useful piece of advice. In fact, before every action, St. Bernard, he used to ask himself always, "Oh, Bernard, would you do this if you were going to die at this very moment? Would you do it in this way?" He'd say, would you not try and do it with greater perfection, with greater love? This is something we can ask ourselves as well, even in the small things. If this were the last thing I was to do during my life, and with what perfection I'd like to have done it with what love. And finally, his last counsel, he says, is to do everything as if we had nothing else to do. Very wise advice. Now, it can often happen in our life that while we're doing one thing, we're often thinking of another. Because of this, many times we can lose the merits for the thing that we're doing. Why? Because we're not giving ourselves entirely to that which God is asking of us. So always to keep the old adage in our minds, agi quod agis, to do well what you are doing. So to place our attention, all of our attention, on the present duty which God is asking us to do. So not thinking of the previous one or the action that is to follow, but to place all of our attention, all of our love in that which we're doing, as though we had nothing else to do. So this is very important, the importance of doing the present action well. In this way we'll grow spiritually, and we can perfect the ordinary things of our day. So when I have to pray, I pray well, without thinking of the work that has to be done, the other things that have to be done. Or if I'm working, I'm going to be working well, offering it to the Lord without thinking of the free time that is about to come. Agi quod agis. So these are little secrets for holiness, a sublime holiness, which is characterized by the Holy Family. So we can pray today that we too can imitate the Holy Family in our lives by trying to do all the ordinary things of our vocation extraordinarily well.
If you found this video fruitful, please feel free to share it with a friend or family member. Or if you would like to learn more about our missionary priests throughout the world and how to support them, please visit iveamerica.org. Thank you for watching, and God bless.